Alright, what's up guys? In today's video, we're going to take a look at the MP5. This is still, in my opinion, the best gun in Warzone. I would say 99% of players are using this with an overkill class, with an assault rifle, due to the fact that this is the best gun. If you're not using the MP5, you're probably using the Origin. So in today's video, we're talking about what is the best class setup and how to build it. This class setup you guys can see on screen is what I think a majority of players are using. In the video, we're going to take a look at a couple of the other attachments that I recommend, as well as what is the best grip. And the biggest factor is in the barrel category. A lot of players are confused what's better, the integral or the regular monolithic suppressors. We're going to take a look at that, but the first thing I want to talk about is what are the best class setups. And along with this class setup, I have the no stock attachment on it. We're going to go a little bit in depth on that as well in this video and talk about why it's good and why it's bad, because I do think it's a very good attachment, but I do think there's another attachment you could try running that's a little bit better, in my opinion, for the gun. So this is the base class that I think pretty much everyone's using. The Merc foregrip and the no stock stacked together to obviously help give you better movement speed, a faster straight speed, and obviously a better hip fire, which they kind of counter each other out. The no stock counters the Merc to give you a better improvement in all of those. Obviously the integral suppressor, the extended mags, and the sleight of hand. This is probably the base class setup. I've tested the grips. What I'm going to recommend next, in my opinion, is a class setup for you guys to try, which is going to be, in my opinion, a little bit better than that class setup. So what we're going to be using is we're going to take off the sleight of hand. Obviously, I think sleight of hand is amazing. Let me just say it up front. Sleight of hand is amazing for this gun, especially in trios and quads. We're going to be still running, obviously, the monolithic integral, the no stock attachment, and the 45 round mag. Like I said, sleight of hand is excellent. No stock is also excellent. Let me just say that. But the 5 milliwatt laser is obviously going to improve your sprint to fire speed, which is a close range only weapon. It also gives you the biggest improvement to your hip fire. So this gun is only used in the close range, kind of like the Origin, only the close range. So even though your laser can be seen, it's still an amazing attachment. The no stock also improves your hip fire. So those two stack together to make the hip fire amazing. And obviously the biggest factor here is we're going to be running the operator foregrip. I made a video talking about how good it was, and I do recommend it on the MP5. This is one of the best attachments as far as the ADS difference in your underbarrels. I'll showcase right here. The Merc's only 4 milliseconds faster than both the Ranger and the Operator. So usually you get a worse aim down sight time. Is actually just the same as the other. In exchange, you get no loss in movement speed and no loss in strafe speed. And when you stack with that collapsible stock, your strafe speed is faster. So you get a improvement on your strafe speed. In exchange, no loss in movement speed. So that no stock attachment that you get an improvement on, you get a better hip fire, faster strafe speed, and faster movement speed with no loss coming from your underbarrel, which in my opinion is going to give you a little bit better of a mobility class setup. Like I said, with the Operator, also testing the recoil, I thought it was excellent. So that's a class setup. What's the most important factor is what is the best foregrip. Like I said, talking about all the unique attachments. You guys can click to any part of the video. You guys can see down the timestamps bar. Each part of the video is being listed for each attachment I'm covering. So the first thing's about what is the best grip in order to help build you that best class setup. So let's jump into that. All right, so like I said, we're taking a look at the best grip. In order to decide which is the best grip, one of the biggest factors for me is two simple things. Number one is what actually gives the best recoil pattern. I think the MP5 is a very accurate weapon. And as far as what makes it the best recoil is what's going to keep it as far as still being accurate. And the second biggest factor for me is I know 99% of players use the collapsible, aka the no stock. So I wanted to see what grip was best with that. And then as far as which has the best stats to give you the least amount of negatives for your best class setup. So when you take a look at all those grips, you take a look at the second part, which has the least amount of negatives and which has the best recoil. The Commando was dead last as far as the best recoil with no stock and the best recoil with just the grips alone on a regular class setup. The Commando took last in both of the recoil patterns, and obviously it has the worst stats. So you get the worst strafe speed and the worst movement speed with the worst recoil. So I don't recommend Commando at all. As far as the Merc versus the Ranger, the biggest factor is both give an excellent second improvement, which is your hip fire and your idle sway, which both are excellent for the MP5. They have the same loss in ADS and the same loss in strafe speed and the same loss in movement speed The biggest factor was when you actually go through and you take a look at the recoil, I think the Ranger had the best recoil pattern possible. So as far as you take a look at what's better, Ranger versus Merc, it depends what your third or fifth attachment is. Obviously, if you're using the no stock attachment, I'm obviously going to be recommending the Ranger because it helps counter it the best. But if you're using no stock or the 5mm laser, also improves your hip fire. So stacking with Merc is also excellent. So both, you can't really go right or wrong. It just depends what your other class setup build is. But I think the Ranger is number one. It had the best recoil pattern. It improves your idle sway, which to me, the MP5 is the worst for that. So it helps improve where the gun is the worst. And it gave the best recoil pattern. So you guys will be able to see on the screen. In order to build this, I had to test each gun. The first one you guys will see right now is with just without the no stock attachment. So this was 5 attachments with the 5mm laser. You guys can see you have the base versus the commando versus the Ranger versus the Merc versus the operator. You guys can see the operator is actually the least amount of vertical recoil. As far as your aim down sight, it's actually the same as the Ranger and the Merc. There's a very minimal difference, and it had the least amount of recoil, so it's definitely excellent. But as far as what had the best recoil pattern, I think the Ranger is number one. And when I once again take a look with the no stock attachment, you guys will see on the left is just the base MP5. Then we have the Commando, which you guys can see is horrendous. This is why I don't recommend it. Then once again, the Ranger, which you guys can see has the most stable recoil, and it's purely vertical. You take a look at that Merc foregrip, you guys can see those first few shots. It is pretty side to side, very hard to control. But the recoil wasn't as much. There's obviously a lot of variance. Every recoil pattern is different, but in my opinion, when you take a look at these recoils, once again, the operator had an excellent recoil pattern, which was why I ranked it second, and the Ranger had the best recoil pattern, both with no stock and without it. So that's why I rank it number one. As far as, deciding which is the best class, it depends what your other attachments are. I definitely think Merc is going to be ranked right there next to Ranger and the operator due to the fact that it has no loss of movement or stray speed. So all 3 grips are going to be the best. Like I said, it's all personal preference. You're going to have to experiment and try it out. But based on physical recoil pattern, I think the Ranger is the number 1 foregrip on the MP5. And so like I said, when we're taking a look at those recoil patterns, we're also including the no stock attachment. And we want to decide how good is the no stock attachment actually. A lot of people use the no stock attachment due to the fact that it improves your movement speed. It also improves your aim down sight time. And I 100% think it's worth using on the MP5 because this gun does get a worse recoil. But the no stock attachment has a bunch of hidden stats. Number 1 is improves your stray speed. When you're aimed down sight, strafing left to right, your strafe speed is 10% faster. It also improves your hip fire, which is about 20% better. So those are 2 major factors with a gun like the MP5, which you're only using a 20-meter range, which are 100% going to improve your ability to win more gunfights, which is why I 100% recommend it. The big negative on why I don't recommend it for SMGs is you only get a 2% faster movement speed. Actually, you get the least improvement in your movement speed on SMGs out of all the guns. And the other real big negative why I personally don't use it is when they did nerf the no stock attachment, they made the idle sway absolutely horrendous. You guys can see the video clip of the base weapon versus the no stock attachment. You guys see with no stock, your idle sway is pretty much horrendous. But like I said, with the hidden stats, it improves your stray speed, your hip fire, and on certain weapons, it actually makes your iron sights a little bit better, easier to see out of. So it has hidden stats, which I think 100% help the gun. And in my opinion, I 100% recommend it due to the fact the MP5 is a close range only weapon. So as far as the biggest factor for the monolithic suppressor versus the monolithic integral, and the biggest difference between each barrel is so minimal, you will not notice, but the integral is a slightly better attachment. On the left here, this will be with the 10% range increase is the regular muzzle, is the regular monolithic suppressor. On the right is the integral. So you get a 2% better range, which in-game adds up to like 3 meters total, which you will not notice. You have a 4-millisecond difference in your ADS, which once again you will not notice. And the biggest factor is going to be in your bullet velocity. You can see the monolithic integral is a little bit better, which in my opinion is going to help your range a little bit. So it does have a little bit more range and a little bit better bullet velocity, but that's it. There's no difference in recoil, no difference in anything. When you actually take a look and you put this together and you compare the two, You take a look at where the range is, you guys can see the range is literally identical all the way up, and even in the last range possible, you're talking about half a meter difference. So the difference is identical in the range. The biggest factor is, like I said, in that bullet velocity category, which is where the monolithic integral is a little bit better, as you can see, by about 10%. So I do recommend that as the best suppressor to use. All right, so before I go completely in depth on the lasers, I want to talk about the 5th attachment first. Number one is obviously the 10mm ammo. It's not really too worth going in depth on. They nerfed it pretty hard, which you guys can see on the screen. They made the recoil worse, the range worse, pretty much everything about it worse. And in Warzone, we have 250 health. You only get 30 bullets in your mag, which obviously doesn't help. In exchange, you get a little bit more damage, which they actually nerf, so I don't recommend that. The few stocks besides the no stock, you have the idle sway stock. Your ADS straight speed goes down massively, so I don't recommend it. The ultralight stock doesn't help out as much as I thought it would. It's actually worse than the improvement the no stock gets. And the CQC stock, the ADS improvement, once again, is not as good as the no stock improvement. So all three stocks aren't worth using. And then the stipple grip tape, you do get a pretty good improvement to your sprint out speed, which this is a close range only weapon. And in exchange, you also get a slightly faster aim down sight time, about 15 milliseconds, which is not that big of a deal. In exchange, you get a worse idle sway, which is definitely one of the worst parts about the MP5. So I don't recommend the stipple grip. I personally just think the sleight of hand is the best attachment to use. You guys will watch the little video clip of the base weapon versus with sleight of hand. You get a full second faster reload, which in a game like Warzone, if let's say if you down 2 enemies and it takes 3 whole seconds to basically reload your gun versus 2, you're obviously going to be able to kill players a whole lot faster, especially if they got that self-res. So sleight of hand to me is amazing on this gun, probably the few and only times you're going to see me recommend it. So what we're talking about next is all the lasers. We're going to have the tac laser, the 5mm laser, and obviously the 1mm laser. See how good they improve the weapon and if they're worth using. All right, so what we're talking about next is going through the lasers and more so taking a look at how they affect your hip fire. As I said, the no stock attachment does improve your hip fire, and I recently have been trying out using the 5mm laser without the no stock attachment due to the fact that it makes your recoil worse, and I truly believe that might be a game changer. So we're taking a look at how good is the 5mm laser actually. You guys will be able to see on the screen right now as far as the biggest improvement you get as far as your hip fire from the 1mm laser to the 5mm to the no stock and the Merc. You guys can see the 5mm laser is 3 times as good as the Merc and the no stock as far as improving your hip fire, which is amazing. And even the 1mm laser is twice as good. So the biggest factor is how well do they actually stack. If you take the 5mm laser and stack with the no stock, how good is your improvement? And it's only 7% better. So if you take the 5mm laser, you guys saw it's 56% better. Putting no stock on there makes it 63% better, which is very minimal improvement. And even stacking the Merc, the no stock, and the 5mm laser, you only go up to 70% better, which you guys can see on the screen. This is the best way to get the best hip fire, which I think I definitely would recommend as a class setup. If you run the barrel, the ammo, the Merc, the no stock, and the 5mm laser, your overall accuracy with this class setup is going to be insane, especially your hip fire. But as far as stacking them, they don't stack that well. So how good is the 5mm laser actually? And due to the fact that stacking an attachment doesn't really improve your hip fire, the 5mm laser is one of the best attachments you can use in my opinion. It also improves your sprint out. It has no negatives, and it gives you the best improvement to your hip fire, 3 times better than that of the no stock attachment. So I think it's an amazing attachment. The 1mm laser is also excellent. Obviously can't be seen by enemies. That doesn't improve your sprint to fire speed, but the 5mm laser is insane. I love it. That's pretty much it for the video. Hopefully, you guys learned something new. It was very long. I tried to go completely in depth across the board on the attachments and cover pretty much everything you can add to this gun. Season 6 dropping very soon. If you guys want to come follow my live stream, twitch.tv/Trapgod. Follow me on Twitch. Make sure you guys use my discount code on all your Scuff and GFUEL purchases. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'll talk to you guys in the next one.